Bensoussan, and I just came out with a book called The Well-Spiced Life, which kind of traces my journey from clueless and Jewishly identified but not particularly observant kid from the suburbs. And then I became more observant and I married someone, a nice Jewish boy from Casablanca. So that entailed an awful lot of learning curve on my part to learn about his culture, take on, I did speak some French when we met, but I had to perfect my French, I had to learn a few words of Arabic, I had to learn a lot of customs. So the book is really about my discovery of Sephardic culture and food and faith, and it includes recipes. So the recipe I'd like to show you today is a special bread we make for Purim. The Ashkenazim, they make Hamantashen, which is supposed to represent Haman's, I guess literally it means his pocket. People say it represents his hat. The Moroccans, coming from a rather more violent culture, they make what they call Haman's eye. It's a hard-boiled egg inside a roll, and the idea is to take a fork and gouge out Haman's eye. So we should never know from Haman again. So what I did here was I made some bread dough. I have a bread recipe, a challah recipe in the book. It's a very easy, like challah for dummies recipe you can make in a food processor. The reason for that being, I find when beginners try to make challah by hand, it's so sticky that they tend to incorporate too much flour, and then the bread comes out like a doorstop. So when you knead it in a machine, you don't fall into that problem. So in my food processor, each batch is like 3 cups of flour, which is about 1 large challah. So here I have, this is the equivalent of two large challahs. So one of them I divided it in 2, and then each of these I'm going to divide again in 3. I want to make 6. In other words, from 1 large challah recipe, where you have about 3 cups worth of flour, you're going to get about 6 rolls, I'd say. So let's try to make them so they're more or less even. Okay. So these are your rolls. Now from each one, I would say take about a quarter of the dough and put it aside. Now you're going to roll this to a little ball, and we're going to make a little indentation in the middle. Okay. Now I have some pre-boiled eggs here. We're going to put an egg here in the center, like this. Make a little nest for it. Okay. Now these we're going to make into 2 strips, which hold the egg in. I got this recipe from a Moroccan cookbook that my sister-in-law gave me when I got married. And they show this picture, and I made it once for Purim, and all my Moroccan friends came over and said, "Oh, I remember those. We used to make those." Rolling out strips here. These long strips of challah dough. And we're going to go like this. It's like a crisscross kind of an effect. And I learned through bitter experience that it's best to kind of score the top one before you put the next one on and stick it under. If you score it, then it doesn't slip around as much as it bakes. Okay, so now this is done. We're going to let it rise. Once it rises another half an hour or so, we're going to put a little bit of a beaten egg on top and bake it. 375. It doesn't need so long, maybe 20-25 minutes. And you have bread for Purim. Now one aside, you can't freeze these because you can't really freeze a hard-boiled egg. So what I usually do, since Purim is such a hectic day, I make the bread dough and I freeze it. I let it rise once, I punch it down, I stick it in the freezer. Then Purim night, I take it out, I let it rise overnight, defrost and rise, and in the morning I boil my eggs and I put it all together. So the dough was already ready, and then the bread is fresh for Purim day. So it's a little bit of a pachka, but it's not too terrible. So these are Haman's eye, and once it bakes, it's going to be twice this size. And I'm going to take our fork and we'll gouge it out.